Well, good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending upon where you're situated at this point. So I'm Dr. Carla Couturier. I am the CEO and founder of Inner Compass Teen Coaching. I'm a teen coach on mindset, confidence, and literally whatever your teen needs to live their best life. And I also coach families as well as parents. What I wanted to talk to you about tonight is a couple different things. And before I get into the content of tonight's masterclass, what I did want to share with you is the journey if you were to be a part of my world. So what you can do is friend me on Facebook if you haven't done so already. And if you would like to join our free group, it's a community that we're building of like-minded parents. So that's a free group. Through my content on social media, whether it be in the group or on my Facebook page, that is all for you to better yourself as a parent, bring things to your teenager, work on things with them, better your teens. So a lot of people that I work with may just need to level up. They need a confidence boost, some motivation, some organizational skills. It totally depends upon the teen and the family. Maybe it's relationship. A lot of times it's rebuilding connection. So it might not be that you have a terrible relationship with your teen, but you do have some things that you both need to work on to grow a stronger relationship. And if you then loved my free content, you were in my Facebook group. A lot of times parents will jump on a quick call with me, about 15 minutes, just to get to know you, your teen a little bit more, know what's going well, what your strengths are, what your teen's strengths are, and what the struggles are. At this point, it's just to kind of get to know one another, determine, hey, do we like one another? Would we potentially want to work with one another? But no commitment there. If you do say, oh, I really do like what you're doing, I really think it would benefit my child, and then I say the same. I say, oh, I really think we're a good fit. What we would do would move forward, and I would speak with your teen one-on-one, ask them some questions, make sure that we can build a strong relationship. And then from that point forward, if you wanted to work with me, I do offer one-on-one sessions for parents, one-on-one sessions for teens, and then at times we'll work as a family too. So that's a little bit about me and my program. I am right now an assistant principal, a college professor. I was a teacher, and I've worked at the middle school, high school, and college level with teens, preteens, and young adults, as well as coaching actual adults that have nothing to do with teen, but similar issues. So that my journey started as a teacher, moved up through all the other areas that I just spoke about. And I started my business a couple years ago, specifically trying to target what we really have a struggle targeting in schools. So teachers are great as coaches, assistant principals are, guidance counselors are, so on and so forth. But the fact that the ratio of students to personnel is very small, and it's difficult to get to all students. And due to the fact that it's an educational institution and it isn't run to necessarily support students, we do our best to support them social emotionally, but I did see this gap, this developmental gap where, if a student is either getting into trouble or is losing their homework or is doing poor with their grades or just struggling with, a boyfriend or girlfriend issue, they kind of kept having the same patterns. And I really knew what teens needed was coaching. They need to be coached through these things to then get to the root of the issue. It isn't just about the relationship or the organization or the motivation. What is the root of the issue and why is this occurring? So that's why I started my business, and that's what I do with teens. And I work to support them through transitions and to transform them, really. As we know, teens are going through their identity shifts, and the stronger they can be with handling their emotions and communicating, the better the adult we will see. So it's all about making them the best person they can be through guidance. So I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to share my screen right now, and I will begin presenting to you. So I hope you find this very valuable. And it's my first part of my presentation will be about boosting teen emotional resiliency. So really building strong teens so that as they grow into young adults and adults, they definitely can, one, be vulnerable, but then also two, truly know how to manage their emotions as well as communicate their emotions. So those are really important things in any type of relationships, whether it be romantic, family, friends, coworkers as they get older. So one thing I'd like you to think about is, what does it look like when you're listening to and giving your attention to your teen? And what does it sound like? So if you're watching this on replay, you can pause here and take a few minutes to think about it. What does this really look like? So think about you in your home, in your car, wherever you might be spending time with your teenager. And what does it really look like when you're truly giving them your attention? So think about that for a couple minutes. I'm going to continue with the presentation, but this would be a good time to pause and think about that, write it down, or just kind of pause and keep it to yourself. The reason I say that is because one of the most important things about building resiliency within teenagers is they need to be heard. So a lot of times their emotions get built up, they get processed in maybe unhealthy ways due to the fact that they're not able to be heard. What they share with you may not be something you agree with. It may not be something that you necessarily, you might understand it, but you might not like it, or it could be a lot of different ways that you could respond to it. But the best thing that you can do is to listen to them. Don't interrupt, don't say something to try to fix it. Don't tell them, don't feel that way. We really want them to share with us and be vulnerable with us. So when a student behaves in a certain way, it's really because they're feeling a certain way. So the key is to try to take whatever behavior it is. It could be something really good, like they're doing tons and tons of homework, they're staying up all night, they're getting their work done, which is great to an extent. But then, I've had tons of students where they're staying up till 1 a.m, then they have practice, they have theater, they have this, you name it, that, in sports. And that's really good that they have all these things going on, but they're also overextending themselves. So we have to make sure that they are owning their energy, manning their energy, and like taking care of their energy. So if they definitely are behaving in a way that seems really positive, but are they overloaded? Then the flip of it is of teens that are maybe like rebellious or giving you a really hard time. Okay, well, that's really frustrating. You've told them 100 times this, that, and the other thing. You've had it up to here, but what's the reason behind them doing this? Yes, it's for attention. So you need to listen to them and have them be heard. But then really, what are the feelings they're having beneath this? And it might not just be a feeling in the moment. It's something that happened between you and them, between just with them, but it's things that they've been carrying for quite some time. So this is why we really need to dig down and really get past these roadblocks and really process these emotions, or it's just going to continue with the same behaviors. So one thing that I've already stated here, to acknowledge their feelings. So what can you do to accept them? And how can you help them to build a stronger emotional resiliency? So when you're asking your teen to be vulnerable, you really need to do the same. So they're not going to open up to you if you're not willing to do the same with them. Sharing what you're feeling in a certain frustrating situation can be really, really open the door between the two of you really getting closer. If you're sharing, I'm very frustrated with you right now. This is what I'm feeling, and you kind of can explain that to them. I've seen many teens kind of be disarmed and listen. And then you're able to, share back and forth and strengthen that relationship in that moment. So we really want them to also be able to learn how to change their state. So if your teen spends a lot of emotional time in a negative space, yes, a big risk is, depression. There's a lot of, even though we are not still in a pandemic, there's a lot of teens that spend a lot of time like in their room, regardless of pandemic, but also like in front of the computer, the phone, and kind of just, wall themselves in. So that can be very, very concerning. Even if they're not doing that, but they're definitely like not in a good mood a lot of time, they really have to build some healthy habits to get them to change that state. And when they're changing that state, whether it be like going for a walk or, walk the dog, take out the garbage, actually go for a run, do a sporting activity, whatever they like to do. The point of that is, yes, it's healthy and, they can keep in shape and all of that. But really the point is, to get their brain out of that state of negativity. And it really helps them to change their mindset. So a lot of things I do with teens have to do with changing their state to change their mindset and their way of thinking. So a lot of teens have a poor self-confidence, don't have a lot of self-worth underneath it all, even though they may present that they do. They really have to ingrain that into their brain and create these daily habits and routines. So that's really, really important for them. Also, guiding them to trust their own perceptions. So a lot of times parents will want to just fix it and say, oh, you're feeling this because of that. Or, I remember, it happening to me when I was a teen, and I'm like, how could you possibly know how I'm feeling right now? You may be right, or you may have an indication, but if you're not allowing your teen to trust their own gut, that's a problem, because as they grow older, they're going to rely on others when they're making the decisions. And it really needs to be them to make their own decisions based upon their experiences and the values that you've instilled in them throughout their lives. Having a sense of purpose. So that's really important for teenagers. Obviously we know peer groups is really, really important. Having them be a part of a team or a club, or just not, even if it's just having friends, period. And it doesn't matter if they're in something official, but they have to have that sense of belonging and that sense of purpose. So even if it's your teen has 2 or 3 friends that like to volunteer, it doesn't have to be that they're on the football team, but they have to have that sense of belonging and have some sort of common goal. So a lot of times when teens are working on identity issues with me, we look at their future self. What do they want their future self to act like, think like, be like, all of those things. So a lot of times it might be, I want my future self to, have large muscles, have a girlfriend, or it could be, I have the prettiest hair, and these are all surface things. That can be part of it, but really, if you are looking to be part of a club and it's very altruistic in nature, well, you have to be that kind of person and show up as that kind of person in order to attract the others that you want to have around you that are going to then move you forward. So is really when teens are looking for their sense of purpose and they're actually connecting with others that really are beneficial to them, they really have to think about what their long-term goals are and direct their actions towards those goals. If you look at the data that I have here, it really shows that high levels of gratitude, compassion, and perseverance really tend to develop purpose. So as teens, get older and older, from freshman, senior year to college, they tend to develop a little bit more passion, gratitude, perseverance. But, with coaching, really, you want to get preteens into those modes of gratitude, compassion, and perseverance, so that when they do get to high school and then on to college, they have more sense of purpose than the previous generations did. Because with that sense of purpose, they engage in very meaningful activities, and then it definitely propels them into thriving. And it really grows leaders. So that is very, very important. When helping teens to build social connections, like I said, having someone to coach them through it is very important. Yes, parents, you can definitely do this. You can support them through this. If you are having trouble doing so, that's when reaching out to someone like me would make sense. Sometimes teens, and I would say pretty much most of the time, teens would reach out to their peers. And that can be good in some instances, but ultimately, do their peers necessarily have a lot more knowledge than them? Absolutely not. So a lot of times that can be tough. We want our teens to trust their peers and hang out with good friends, but ultimately we want the values that you've instilled in them, really coming from you as well as a support person such as myself. Close family and friends, we definitely want them to go there to strengthen those connections. Absolutely. So if you're watching this on replay or you're live right now, I want you to just jot down what you're feeling when you hear these statements, not a response to them, but like what the feeling is when I say them. Okay. So to help with feelings, a lot of times, underneath what the action that the teen is taking, they tend to have some sort of feeling beneath that. So a lot of times, and I've spoken about this before, about acknowledging their feelings. So listening with your full attention, putting your phone down, shutting off the TV, whatever it might be. It might not be straight looking them in the eye, because that can be kind of intimidating. They might not want to share, but just showing that you're available to them. And then, summarizing, like, if I'm hearing you correctly, this is what I'm hearing you say. You feel this, this, and this. So really just acknowledging them and asking them to give their feelings a name. So it isn't necessarily like you telling them, oh, you must be feeling X. If they get stuck, if they're having trouble with it, maybe suggestions might be make sense. But we really want them, you want to question them in such a way after you listen to them that makes them really be able to name their feeling and own it. So once they own it, they can then process it. And, if they do have wishes such as, oh, I want this brand new car, and they're nagging you for it, yes, right away you want to say, no, absolutely not. You barely have a permit, and so on and so forth. But, but, instead of just saying no and shutting them down, you're not leading them on, but you can say, wouldn't that be amazing right now if you had that brand new car? And they might say, yeah, it really would. And, then you can respond with, well, let's see what happens. And, hey, maybe it's a potential 2 years from now. So really saying that, kind of giving them their wishes in fantasy. And it doesn't even have to be something major like that. If there's something you don't want them to do, like you aren't comfortable with them sleeping over friends' houses, maybe they ask and they ask and they ask, and, they're only 12 years old. Well, maybe you could say, someday that would be amazing. And, at this point, I'm very comfortable with your friends sleeping here. So they're still obtaining something that they want and not getting just shut down, but you're also still holding your boundary and saying no, and just in a different type of way. So no matter what your teen is feeling, you want to accept those feelings. You don't want to say, don't feel that way, or that's not true, because you really don't know. And even if they aren't really good at naming their emotions just yet, and they don't know what they're feeling, that's fine. It's better for them to just share with you than it is to say like that you don't accept that emotion. And a good thing to remember is if you are not in a good state, it's not a good time to talk to them. So you don't want to impose your feelings upon them. So if you had a long day at work and you're really frustrated, this is not the time to have the conversation with your team. But maybe like on a Saturday morning after like you hung out and had your coffee and, took an hour break, maybe that's a good time to say like, hey, let's schedule this in right now. Let's talk. I know on Thursday night, such and such a thing happened. What were you feeling at that time? And if they say something that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's okay. And you could admit that to them. That's being vulnerable. Or, I didn't know that you were feeling that way, and I don't know, the interaction could have been an argument, and, it's okay to apologize. We as adults often, pour our emotions onto our teens, and, like they're supposed to just be handled because we're adults, but that's not fair either. So we want them to express what they were feeling, their unhappiness, their unsettling, whatever they're feeling. And we want to have them at least bring it to the surface and then be able to find a way to let it go. They might not let it go the first time you talk about it. They might not let it go the second time, but little by little, the more they can kind of process it, they will eventually be able to let it go. Tonight, I also wanted to talk about teen autonomy. So a lot of times, parents want their teens to act a certain way and, be very responsible, but then they are doing everything for them. So we have to kind of be cognizant of the way that we're acting as parents, and expecting things from our teens, but then also doing it for them. So we don't want to be contradictory. So the first thing I want you to do, if you are watching this right now, is to write it down, or if you are watching this on replay, list the things you do for your team daily. So write down all the things that you do that serves them. And then I want you to list, like, you can just put a line down the middle of the paper, and on the other side of the paper, list the things that your team does daily. All the things that they do for themselves. And I want you to compare the length of the lists. So if you get a list that is, 10 things that you do for your team and 20 things they do for themselves, nice. If you get a list that's 5 things that you do for your team and they do 20 things, even better, because we want them to do as much as they can for themselves. But there may be a few things that they still need your help with. Fine. But if you have a list that has you doing 20 things and your team doing like 3 things, then you are not helping them to build autonomy. So what you want to do as a result of that is start one by one, doesn't have to be all at once, but one by one, start having your team do more things for themselves. So if right now you're cleaning their room and you're picking up after them and you're doing the dishes and you're making their dinner and so on and so forth, take one of those things off your plate and put it on theirs. And then little by little, you will build autonomy over time. So if it's the one thing is to do the laundry, so then they got to do their laundry every week. And you cannot cross that boundary, and you have to be consistent with that. You're not doing it at all. And if they run out of clothes, they run out of clothes. So they have to have that natural consequence, because it is no longer your task. It is completely on them, because pretty soon they're going to be off to college and they're not going to have anyone to do their laundry, as an example. So really what we want to do with teens is foster their independence. So the comment I just made, and it is hard for a lot of parents, when their teens go off to college and they're empty nesting, and there's a huge void there. So it's totally understood. But we also, what is the reason why we're doing everything for them? That's what we really have to get to the bottom of. Because is it really serving them, or is it serving something within you? And that's really the key. And a lot of times when I work with parents, that's what we dig down on. So it isn't the fact that your teen is being a brat and not doing anything. That's part of it, okay? But I'm not here to fix that. I'm here to help you, look at yourself and the reasons why you're doing certain things. And, how does it make you feel whole or complete or useful, or whatever it might be, whatever kind of parent you are, to do these things for them. So you have to kind of look at why you're acting the way you're acting, in addition to why the teen is doing what they're doing. So when you're fostering autonomy, they are going to make mistakes. So if you're doing things for your team because you're so afraid that they are going to fail, you have to allow them to fail safely. So you're not going to let them do something that's going to get them into a car accident or something like that. But if they didn't have, if they didn't cook dinner one night and they had to eat something else, so be it. You want them to be collaborating with you to involve them in decision making. Making all the decisions for them is not going to make it work. It is not going to hack it. So if you make all the decisions for them, then what are you doing? Are you allowing them to become adults, or are they just going to stay your children forever when they're in their 30s and 40s? So you want to share your feelings, as well as we said before, and you want to ask them a few questions, but not too many questions, just enough to get them to speak, to talk, let them open up and quietly listen. And then again, if needing more help, to reach out. So there's different types of autonomy. So there are healthy types of autonomy. You want to make sure that, if you're allowing your teen independence and you've given them some means of independence, it's not that they're just relying on their friends, that they truly have the independence. So you can see here we have emotional, behavioral, and value-based decisions. So oftentimes with their emotions, teens turn to their peers, which, as I stated before, can be kind of scary because those teens can't process their emotions either. Maybe some can, understood. I know that that's a general statement, but typically speaking, no, it can be difficult. So behavioral autonomy is their ability to make decisions. So we want them to make calculated decisions. We want them to take calculated risks. So we want them to make decisions that help them to grow, decisions that move them forward. So those decisions aren't always going to be the safest decisions when we're talking about things like, go for that job after school, or broaden your horizons, let's volunteer at this place, or making a decision to I don't know, get a dog and be able to take care of it. And, so there's certain things that you want them to take risks with, like, take that different class in college. You never know where it's going to take you, so you don't want them to take the risks such as doing things unsafely. That's not the risk we're talking about, but sometimes they've got to go outside of their comfort zone, and we encourage them to do that. And that takes action. So really, really, really what's, unfortunate for teens and adults as well is indecision. Indecision just gets us stuck. So yes, we want you to take your time with decisions. Everything's always not a snap decision, but we also don't want to brood back and, over and over it for long periods of time. You have to, come to some sort of conclusion, look at the pros and cons, and make a decision. Every decision isn't going to be perfect, but we need to support our teens through these decisions. So there's times when you have to make decisions for your teen. It's in their safety, in their best interest, but there's a lot of times where you can allow them to make those decisions. And if they do make an error, if they do fail, it's a safe fail. You're not going to yell and get upset with them and be angry. You're going to allow them to, take the natural consequences that will go along with it. But ultimately, it's their decision and their positive or negative consequence. And you want all of their decisions to be based on their values. So these are the values that you instilled within them. Also, if they have good friends, their peer relationships are really good with similar values, that's wonderful. But that's not always the case. So even if they're in a crowd at a place that they typically might not be, they're having a party at a friend's house and they don't know a lot of people, you still want them to be able to have that strong decision-making and value-based decision-making. So if they're asked to do something they don't feel comfortable with, they have the ability and the confidence to say no, and make, very moral choices. So parents, as parents definitely want closeness. So there's a lot of things that parents get that they may think that they don't deserve, and they really don't. You don't deserve to have your teens be, being very rebellious and, questioning you, getting in fights all the time with you. But ultimately, this is their time where they're trying to find themselves and trying to create their own identity, and they are going to question you. So these are all things that you have to be ready for. They're not things that you must accept, but you have to be prepared, be in a good state for them, realize this is what's going to happen, and navigate through it with them. So they want their autonomy, they want their independence much more than we're willing to give them at this time. But with that being said, they are not adults yet. So we want to help them to become more autonomous, but there's also limits. So to encourage autonomy, we want to allow teens to make decisions. That is, as I stated before, fail-safe decisions, thought-out decisions, but they're their own decisions, and then they own those decisions. So if they do fail at something and then they make a mistake, it's not you ultimately always bailing them out. Show them respect when they're making decisions, because it's not easy. And, really quietly listen, ask a few questions, Don't berate them. And, let them know that like, everything is temporary. So it might be devastating right now that, I don't know, your prom date dumped you, or, they decided to go with the wrong person and now they're devastated. Well, there is a consequence for the choice that they made, but we want to support them and let them know like it's going to be okay, but this is something you're going to have to live through. So what can I say or do to keep a teen or my teen dependent upon me? So that's what I want you to think about and write about and process, whether you're watching this on replay or watching this live. What can I say to keep them dependent? So what are the behaviors or the phrases or the actions that you're taking right now that do not encourage autonomy, but encourage them to be dependent upon you? And then the flip of that, what can I say or do to encourage my teen's autonomy? What are ways that you cannot find the answers for them? You can allow them to come to their own conclusions. So also when you're thinking of these specific phrases, what is it right now that you are doing more of? So of these two kind of ways that you are either allowing your teen to become more independent or not, what do you tend to do more of? Do you tend to say things that are more encouraging your teen to be independent or dependent? So more ways to encourage autonomy. Yes, you want to make sure that you know everything about your teen, but do you need to know every little thing? So ultimately that they're, making good decisions, that they're a good human being, that they're, taking care of their hygiene, they're taking care of their area, their room, their car, like being kind to others, the big rocks. But you have to know exactly if they brush their top teeth or their bottom teeth first? Do you have to know, if they're wearing purple underwear or green underwear? So yes, they're your child and you have the right to know everything about them, but at this point they do need some level of privacy. And if you are, one thing that I know I see a lot is, a lot of, but not even just parents, just adults talk in front of teens as if they're not there, and they talk about them. And I see this quite often, and I tend to stop people and say, Joe here, what is it that you think? I mean, all the adults here are making, their thoughts and based decisions based upon what your life is going to look like. But, do you want to do X, Y, and Z or not? What is your motivation? What is your ask? This is your life. So no, we're not going to, allow them to make decisions that, won't help them graduate from high school. But we are going to ask them because they need to buy into their own decisions. And really know that, teens have their own level of readiness. Every teen isn't going to be ready to be super autonomous at the same rate. So like I said, if you know your own child, but you also know yourself. So you want to allow your teen to gradually build autonomy. But with that being said, some teens can take on a lot more, a lot faster, and others can't. But you might be surprised. So you might not want to let go of that much either. So you have to really self-assess and say, is there a reason why I'm not allowing my teen to drive yet? Or is there a reason why I'm not allowing them to, do certain tasks around the house? Is there a reason why I'm not allowing them to be home alone? And if you have valid reasons because they've broken your trust, fair enough. But if it's just because something inside of you have to kind of look at that. So we like to say no. I mean, I like to say no to teens because sometimes they don't really, know what's going on or think of the consequences. But there might be alternatives because no, just shutting them down. It can work, but it also can build a lot of angst and a lot of resentment. So we don't really want to do that. So instead of saying no, some of the things we can do, as we spoke about already, are accepting their feelings. Not lecturing them on it, but giving some information or describing what the problem is. If you can substitute a yes for a no, that's always the best thing. So, no, you're not going to that party. Maybe you can say something like, yes, I understand there's a party tonight. The family's going to spend some time together, and you need to stay home, and you're going to be included in that time together. So you didn't say no. You said, yes, I know there's a party tonight, but you are not allowing them to go. So you're still keeping your boundary, but you're saying it in a different way. That you still might not get the response you want. They still understand it's a no, but the more you say it that way, the better your relationship will be. And you can actually have a conversation about it, as opposed to just, potentially having the teen blow up at you. And then a lot of times, you're not going to know the answer right away. You don't have all the answers. So you may need to say something like, I hear your ask, and I will get back to you, tonight about that, or tomorrow about that. So you may not know what you want to do with the question that they pose you yet, and that's fine. You don't have to respond right away. And if they are impatient, then they are impatient. They need to wait. But you might need some more time to weigh the pros and cons of the decision that you want to make with them and the boundary you want to set. So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight or watching the replay. And again, reach out to me if you found value in this. Please like it on my YouTube or on my Facebook. Please connect with me via social media. Follow me on any social media. And we do have a free group for parents. So we would love for you to join and be a part of that as well. Thank you.